Hello, welcome to Nail Talk with Jane. I'm Jane, your host. I will be interviewing some extraordinary people living lives just walking among the rest of us, which I absolutely love. Stories fascinate me, and I want to start by introducing you to my own story and how I came to make Nail Talk with Jane. I am 53. I am a two-time survivor of domestic violence, childhood sexual abuse, and also domestic violence as an adult. And I believe and I know with my whole heart, because I've lived it, that we take the lessons we learn as kids and we carry them forward, positive, negative, or otherwise. So, over the last decade or so, I have really gone deep into exploring my own story and how I came to be where I am today. And what's really exciting about that is I believe that change is possible for anybody. And I mean that, you guys. Change is possible for anybody. When I started out on my quest to figure out who I really was, I was pretty overweight. I was 265 pounds. For me, for my frame, that was just not a good weight to be. I was depressed. I was a single mom for the first time. I was homeless. I had, all of these things happening at the same time. Selling, losing my home and raising my daughter on my own, trying to figure out how I was going to make a living. I hadn't worked in an office in 12 years. I was a bit like Lucille Ball when I first started in my first office job, hanging up on my boss and breaking the fax machine and all kinds of stuff. But I eventually got it. And what happened was I had just this period of growth. And so when you're in your 40s, you kind of think you tend to have seen it all and done it all, right? Well, I really hadn't, because a lot of me had been hiding. I had been hiding behind trauma that I experienced as a kid that I had not really fully processed yet. And what I mean by that is I had been to the counselor, I had been to the doctors, I had, done all of the psychological things that most people think are normal to do when you're trying to process trauma. But what I hadn't done and what I hadn't figured out is that I didn't have permission to really talk about who I was. So I go out in the world and I'm a worker in the medical field. I'm, a mom of a kiddo going to college. I'm a wife. I'm, a sister, a friend. But nobody really knew who I was deep down because I didn't know who I was either. So fast forward, it was about, I want to say 2013-ish, 14-ish, when I was taking a class as part of my senior project to graduate from Marylhurst with my communications degree. I was slowly checking things off my bucket list. I lost weight and got healthy. I got my daughter through high school. I'm graduating college. And so I'm on my senior capstone project. And what the heck am I going to do? Well, I already knew I was a survivor, right? So I thought, well, okay, I survived. I'm doing good. I've got my kiddo through school. All these things are happening. So why don't I give back? All right. So I head over to our local women's shelter, which I just adore. And I started on my journey of 90 hours of volunteering and went ahead and got my Oregon Advocacy Certificate so I could volunteer either on the phone lines or in shelters or, any of those things like that. And on my very last class of my very last hours before I earned my certificate, which I was really excited about, a gentleman came and taught a class called Men Who Batter. And after the class, we learned, of course, all the different things that happen in DV relationships. But over the course of that hour, he closed out the class and then started talking about his other job. And Matt, I'm going to call you out because I love you, Matt Johnston. You're awesome. You changed my life. So he started talking about his other job and what else he does. And Matt is the director of a fantastic program called DVSD. It's Domestic Violence Safe Dialogue. So when Matt came out and talked about his other job, he also talked about this young woman, and he brought her up. And this young woman was a domestic violence survivor. She stood there in front of myself and, all these other people that were taking this class. There were community health workers. There were, first responders, police, sheriffs, all kinds of people in this class, myself as a volunteer. And she started telling her story. And she started telling her story about her experience with domestic violence and how she turned it around and turned it into something that she's able to use for education, prevention, and healing. and that is working with survivor impact panels. So I got really excited. In fact, after the class, I've told Matt this 100 times, I about tackled them and I said, I need to know who you are, where do I find you, and how do I get involved? Because I just knew this was the missing piece. And when you find those missing pieces in your life, and that's what I'm really striving to do with this show, is to find people who have found the missing pieces or found those pieces that really make their inner shine. So 2 weeks later, I find myself in the DVSD office, and Matt will remember this. I ended up telling him my entire story. But what was interesting about it is at that time, I told him the piece of the story that I had always told my therapist, that I'd always told myself. But I never really told him the piece of the story that was really me, right? And so when I told him this little piece of the story, he said, okay, why don't you take it to one of our survivor impact panels? Do you feel ready to talk to a room full of offenders who have been arrested for domestic violence? So the panels, there are 3 survivors on a panel, and we each get 20 minutes to tell our story. And it's really hard to encapsulate an entire life in 20 minutes, right? So I found myself in Hillsboro, Oregon, in the Civic Center, county courthouse, talking with a panel of other survivors who were just fantastic. And this audience of 40 people who'd been arrested for domestic violence. Now, all of them were men in this case. And so I'm staring, and I'm the last one that's going to speak, right? And so I have like 40 minutes to just watch these people and wonder, what do I have to say? What can I say that is going to change somebody's life? I don't even, in fact, by the time that last speaker was about to get done, before it was my turn, I was thinking to myself, what am I doing here? You know, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? I so wanted to just crawl under the table and crawl through the chairs and disappear, right? But I didn't. I stood up and, well, actually sat down and introduced myself, and I just started talking. And what was amazing about that is this is the very first time ever that I had spoken these words out into the world, and I had taken them out of my head, out of my heart, and brought them to the world. And the interesting thing was, as soon as that happened, it was like I felt an immediate heat, an immediate light. And the questions that were asked of us after the panel from the offenders were incredible. And it just made me want more and more and more. And it isn't more like, ooh, I want to show off. Ooh, I want to, I want to make a difference. Of course I did. But it was more like this was what I was meant to do. All of that angst and all of that heartache and all of that, everything that I poured into, who I was for those 40 some years, it's like it all just made sense, right? So over the course of the next couple years, I took more classes. I did lots more survivor impact panels with Multnomah County, Washington County, all over the Tri-City area in Oregon. And then something interesting started happening. I started teaching. I taught a speaker's workshop. And I found out that one of my passions was coaching. I loved coaching women. And that's where the story gets really interesting, because my passion for coaching led me to another passion, which I really had no idea that was even within me. And that's what it does when we let our real selves out and we kind of show our ugly to the world. And I say that tongue in cheek, because all of us have that little bit of ugly that we try to hide, and we do our Facebook, this is my good side, and we're going to do our lives, and all our kids are dressed perfectly for Disneyland, and we're all happy. That's fine and wonderful, because we all have that in our lives, but there's that little bit of ugly, I'm just going to call it. And I don't mean ugly like I'm ashamed of it. Absolutely not. I mean ugly like this happens to people. Things like this happen to people. Domestic violence happens. 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men are the recent statistics. I wouldn't be surprised if they've even been lowered by now. So these things do happen. People get into tragic accidents. People have, children that pass. I mean, there's just all these things that happen. And if we keep them inside and we don't share them with the world, then we're locking ourselves in as well. And we're locking in that shame. And I love, there's a favorite author of mine, Brene Brown. If you haven't picked up any of her books, Daring Greatly, any of those, please do. Because one of her sayings is one of my very favorite ones. And she says, I never tell a story that I have not yet healed from. I never tell a story that I have not yet healed from. So you'll know. It's like that proverbial thing that people say to you, well, how am I going to know when I XXY, XXX, fall in love? How am I going to know when I XXX this, XXX that? You just know. And I hate to say that because I know it's frustrating for people who are on a path and they're like, oh, I don't know, how am I supposed to know what to share about myself? You figure it out because you just leave your heart open. So, what I decided to do was take one passion of mine and marry it with this passion, which is public speaking and interviewing and finding out people's stories. I want to hear your stories. I love them. And I'm hoping as we grow this channel that we can all respond to each other in such a positive way. And so if you hear a story on my channel and it resonates with you, send me a message. Let me know. I'll get you in touch with the person who I interviewed. I will get you in touch with that person. We'll get you in touch with resources maybe that person has gone through that you might be searching for and you just didn't know were there. It's all about connecting and building bridges. And so what I did is I actually, about June of last year, I fell in love, absolutely head over heels, with a nail product. Okay, innocuous as that sounds, because we've just been talking about all this really, heavy stuff. I fell in love with a nail product at a farmer's market that I found. And my friend Sally, who I'm going to call out here too because I love you, girl, Sally got me my first set of Color Street nails. Now, if you have not tried Color Street nails, let me tell you, you don't know what you're missing. Because what I did all the years growing up and all the years that I wasn't telling my story is, I didn't take I didn't take my hurt out necessarily on super harmful things, but I did harm myself by constantly biting my nails. I was picking at my cuticles, biting my nails, and then it was that source of shame, right? It's like, ugh, I can't go to this event with my nails looking like this. And so then I would end up, going and spending $50 at the nail salon. And then I would feel guilty after a while. I'd do it 2 or 3 times. And then I'd be like, oh, I can't spend this money. I can't, it's not the budget. So then I'd stop and then I'd look at my nails. I'd be like, oh God, they're just awful. They're all pitted and, from the drills and the drills and the glue and the paint and all of that stuff and all these different remedies I tried, but I still would end up without nails on, picking and biting and having it be a source of anxiety. And so when I met Sally and I saw Color Street, I tried my first set on and I was just blown away. For the first time in my life, I had pretty nails that were mine. And that's part of what my show was about. And that's how that kind of resonated with me. And I said, wow, I can really do this. I can do this Nail Talk with Jane because we like to feel beautiful, right? Everybody likes to feel beautiful. I don't care if you're short, fat, tall, skinny, old, young, grandma, baby, we all like to feel wanted, beautiful, but beautiful within ourselves, not artificial, somebody telling me I'm beautiful, but we want to feel beautiful inside. And so these nails, as crazy as that sounds, these nails made me feel beautiful for the first time in a really long time, right? And when you've been in a child abuse survivor, a lot of us, and can only speak for myself, we kind of have our bodies, we disconnect our bodies from here down because this is what we had to use to survive. This is what somebody else was taking away from us, being my body. That's what somebody else was taking away from us. And so coming back into yourself and doing something as simple in self-care as doing your nails, I'm going to show you in just a second, as doing your nails can just make you feel phenomenal. And it in building these bridges with my story and where I was going and knowing that I love to coach in business. I love to, to work with people who really want to move forward in their lives, whether it's, financially or, spiritually, emotionally, whatever. I just love to connect with people. I'm not a counselor. I'm a peer mentor. That's simply all I am. I'm a healthcare worker. I'm a mom. And now I'm a Color Street independent representative. And I just love getting to know people. So that's how Nail Talk with Jane is born. I am in love with the company. I am in love with the product. I think the owner is fantastic. I'm going to post a video of him. This is, of course, my first introductory video, but I will post a video of Mr. Park, the owner and creator of Color Street. And it was actually after trying the product and after reading his story and realizing that we had a lot in common. Now, we've never met. I just started with the company. but we've already talked, texted with each other because that's how I feel life is. Life is connecting. Life is making those moments count. So here is my reveal. Here are my nails that I'm absolutely in love with. Okay, this particular one is called Mardi Gras. And my hands are 53, right? I'm getting the wrinkles, I'm getting everything on them. But it is so nice, you guys, to be able to go out. First of all, these are 100% real nail polish strips, right? And you can put these on in 5 minutes. Literally 5 minutes, no dry time. I'm going to do an application later today on my first video with my first guest, and we'll be doing that live. But you can put these on in 5 minutes. You can do nails or toes, and they stay on. Now, let me show you this set. Now, normally, even when I'd go to the salon, sometimes I'd end up chipping, or there'd be that awful grow out. And this set has been on for over a week, and it will stay on with me like iron for more than a couple more weeks. And look at no chipping. Isn't that gorgeous? High, flawless color, and just absolutely makes me feel gorgeous. So that is the basis of my new YouTube channel, Nail Talk with Jane. We are going to be traveling around Oregon. We're going to be talking to some amazing people with amazing stories, and we're going to be doing their nails because that's what we do. We do self-care and we take care of each other. So I'm really happy to meet you. Again, my name is Jane. I'm your host of Nail Talk with Jane. You're going to get a once-a-month show, and if you would like more, then just write me and let me know. Tell me about the topics you want to hear about. I guarantee you, if you give me a topic, I will find somebody who's had that experience and I'll share it with you. Because nobody wants to feel like they're on an island by themselves, right? Especially with, some kind of a self-care thing like I was searching for and didn't even know I was searching for, or like an outlet for my story that I was searching for that I didn't even know. So I'll also be doing some personal videos and talking to you a little bit about my own healing and my own journey. But right now, I just want to say hello and welcome, and I'm really excited, and I love you guys, and thanks for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye.